So before you hear this song, I just want you to hear the testimony behind it and how it came about and how God was with us throughout this whole process of making this song. In December 2022, I heard God saying through the flame, and I heard God telling me to make a song called Through the Flame. So I started writing the song. I got my sister Rivka. She lives in Wisconsin. She's done music. She did one of my challenges. I heard her voice on this song, and so I reached out to her immediately and wanted to get her on it. So we started making this song, and it was turning out beautiful. And we just knew that God's hand was on it, and we were just excited to release this thing. And then we got busy. So, between work and her work, she lives a couple hours away. We didn't finish it, and we kind of just put it on the back burner. So fast forward 6 months, here we are in June, and I get a tragic call from my wife, and she's, crying and very, very emotional, and she tells me to get over to my mother and father-in-law's because their house is burning down. So immediately I got in my car and I started driving, and as soon as I got on my porch, I could see this just big cloud of smoke, and I'm just like, man, this cannot be good. And they live 2-3 miles away from me, so it's not super close, but it's not super far either. But you could just see this big mushroom cloud of smoke, and so I raced over there. And as soon as I got there, I seen about 8 fire trucks from different cities, and the garage was completely burned down at this point. And my mother and father-in-law were so emotional, and my mother-in-law was on her knees just crying, and I walked up to her, gave her a hug, and the first thing they did was ask me to pray for them. So that's what I did. I gave them a hug and I prayed for them, and it was a really emotional day. Everything that they worked for up to that point was basically in that garage, and they were also working on the house in the garage because they had a surprise birthday for me, which I didn't know about, and all that got burned down. And so it was a very emotional experience. And then about 2 days later, I got a message from my mother-in-law, and she sent me this picture. And it's just so beautiful how God puts his signature on things. It was a church pew that they had in their backyard, and there was things around this church pew that had melted. Even there was a dustpan on it that was like melted to the church pew. And everything around it was burnt, but this church pew was still standing, and it was super dried out. Like, how did that thing not catch in flames, And that was just a reminder that this song that we wrote 6 months ago literally almost came to life and showed us that even in the flame, God is with us, right? We can be untouched, we can be unburned, even when everything else around us is burning down, and God is still with us through that. Amen. And that was just a testimony, and I feel like God put his signature on that. Even though it was a horrible, tragic situation, I feel like God gave us a sense of hope in that situation. Amen. But the most ironic thing I think about this whole thing was my father-in-law and I used to live next door right there, and my father-in-law and I used to be at odds with one of the business owners down the street because they used to race their cars down the street 60 miles an hour. They'd park over there, and we couldn't get through the street. And so there was a couple times where it got pretty hectic, right? And a couple times that it got kind of crazy, and we were at odds with them. They didn't like us, and we didn't really get along with them too well. Well, it's so ironic that my father-in-law was working in the backyard, and he went in to take a drink, sit down, have some water, and about 20 minutes later, somebody was banging on his door for him to come out. He had no clue that his whole garage was burning down. The very person that knocked on his door was the same neighbors that we were at odds with, and we just thank God that somebody that really didn't like us, right, stepped up and did that. And I think it's just an amazing thing that tragedy can bring people together, and we just thank God for that brother, and we thank God that my family members weren't hurt, right? Things can be rebuilt. But, if they happened to be in that fire, things would have been different. So we just thank God for that. And we thank God that he's moving through that process. But that really what makes this song so much more meaningful. We got out there and we took advantage of it. And we said, you know what? We're going to send a message. Even in this tragedy, God was here. Even in this tragedy, we felt hope. Even in this tragedy, God was with us through the flame, just like in Daniel 3:25. So I would encourage you to read the whole book of Daniel, especially chapter 3, because this is really kind of what it reminds me of and what it takes me back to. But I'm just going to do chapter 3, verse 25, just for the sake of time. It says, he said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Amen. So I'm here to tell you that Jesus was with them, even in this fire, even in this flame, even in this tragic situation. God had his hand on them. And it's so amazing because God is working on their life even right now. And we're just so thankful for that. And I love them. And I'm so sorry that this happened to them. But God's making something good at it. And we're thankful for that. Amen. Thank you for listening.